Or you decide I'm going to send flowers because I haven't sent my Aunt Sue any flowers and she was good to me and I have a windfall. And you send it to Aunt Sue. That's not blowing it. That's a flower shop having a job because somebody has to put it together and somebody has to deliver it. It's all a jobs program. And I get sick of people acting like what happens in the arts community and what we do with our money somehow is not as nice as what Wall Street and the bankers do. I'm sincere. I mean, I'm not here for this, but I just think that we have to keep reminding people that what we do is important. And if we keep letting American kids become as stupid as they're becoming, it's no wonder that we are such a bad nation. The kids have to read, which means the kids now need Kindles or Nooks. They're going to need an electronic reader because it's the way that the world is going, and they need books to read. They need poetry to read. They need plays that they can act out. And that means that some of us in this room have to produce that. And in the meantime, you have to eat. What is the downside of artists eating and having heat in their homes? Now, you read about that, you know. Oh, he was an artist, he was a poet, and he died of consumption. That would be Edgar Allan Poe. Oh, you know, he died on a park bench. What the hell is that? One of the greatest men that we produce dies on a park bench, and somebody that can manipulate the stock market dies in a gold damn casket. But I'll tell you what I love about the hip-hop generation. We were just talking about it. I'll tell you what I love about those kids. We will not have to have benefits to bury them. They are good business people, and they can live their lives, and they can bury themselves, and I love them for that because I am so tired of the art community. All of us end up being poor, and somebody has to say, you know, what is that, poor give us, we all got plenty of money for the sauce, sir. Yes, Lord. And we, you know, if Bing Crosby hadn't buried Louis Armstrong, he'd be sitting someplace rocking right now. Louis Armstrong, who made American music. What kind of sense does that make? And how many Louis Armstrongs? We're in Chicago. This is an incredibly talented city. How many young Louis Armstrongs do we have who are now not being allowed to blow their horn, who are not being encouraged to move forward because of some minor need, because they're not trying to get rich. They're trying to get bus fares so that they can come downtown, so that they can be a part of something. Come on, we can do better. That's why I'm here. I just thought I should mention that. This is actually my latest book, and I'm so proud of it for a lot of reasons. When you get to be a little old lady, I've always liked anthologies. I think my first anthology was called Night Comes Softly. But when you get to be a little old lady, this is the kind of book. It's called The 100 Best African American Poems. There's an asterisk, but I cheated. And this is a source book. Source books is your neighbor there in Naperville. Actually, Chicago's going to take over everything to Gary, Indiana. And from what I've seen of Gary, she probably take over Gary, too. People like to help Gary. You know. What does Gary, Indiana got in common with Bloomington? Nothing. But this is a... I don't know how. I can talk about the Midwest. This is the kind of book that actually the publisher brings to you. No artist, no writer wakes up in the morning and says, I'd like to edit the 100 best. It just doesn't happen that way. Sourcebooks is created and run by a lovely woman named Dominique Braca. And Dominique called me and said, you know, Nikki, you know, are you coming to Chicago? And I said, no, Dom, I'm not. because I wasn't. And she said, well, do you think you might be coming soon? And actually, I love Dom a lot, but all publishers are cheap. And it's the nature of publishers. And so I said, no, Dom, I'm not. And she said, well, if I put a plane ticket, would you come? And I said, absolutely. And she said, I'll take you to dinner. Some things you want to talk over. I thought, oh, God. Because they never take you to dinner. They say, come by the office and have coffee. So it's really like, whoa. And so we did. We went to dinner. She said, you know, we're thinking to do the 100 best. You know, we thought you might be a good person to edit that. I said, Dom, I'd be delighted. You know why? Because if somebody brings you a project, I don't care what or who, the answer is yes. You have to learn that as an artist. The answer is yes. If you get it done, you have the project. If you don't get it done, I'm sorry. Always keep that in mind. Start with yes. So I said yes. But then I said, you know, what's the Nikki going to be in here? Because to do the 100 best African American poems, you're going to run from Paul Laurence Dunbar, essentially, to Imam Baraka. If you pushed it, because I love him so much, to Tupac Shakur, and that's going to be it. So where does the young voice come in? I grew up in the Baptist church. I'm not a big churchgoer or anything like that, but I know this. Church has to have Sunday school. If church doesn't have Sunday school, soon there's no church. So my question for this book was, where's Sunday school? So I decided to devote a fourth of this book to new voices. Now, of course, the question would always be, oh, how do you know that this fourth of these new voices that you're bringing, how do you know it's the best? And of course, my answer is, how do you know it's not? So I got that in. This book does not run in chronology. It starts with Margaret Walker's For My People, and it ends with ego tripping. I also know that nobody knows 100 anything. I have a friend, an acquaintance, I should say. She lives in California, and she turned 50 now 17 years ago. And she called me up. But she called me up, and she said, Nikki, I'm turning 50. I said, yeah, we're all turning, because we were born at the same time. I said, yeah, we're turning 50. And she said, well, I was going to have a party, and I'm inviting 50 of my closest friends. I said, I don't know how to tell you this. Nobody has 50 friends. That's like people on Facebook. I got 130 friends. So I put together a board. And I asked your sister Chicago, Val Gray Ward, because she's the voice of the Harlem Renaissance, Joanne Gavin. I asked Mary Evans, and I asked my former student, who's now a great poet in his own right, Kwame Alexander. And what we did was we put together this board, and we all voted, and pretty much, not pretty much, it's my selections, but I knew that I needed help. People say, you need to see this, you know, like I would have missed Jericho Brown, and I would not have missed Terrence Hayes, and many of us in this room are covered, so if you don't mind me saying it that way. But one of the things that happens when you're black is that black people don't pay any attention to you until white people do. It's just what happened. But we got Terrence Hayes in here before he won the National Book Award. And when he won the National Book Award, I was like, yes, we had Terrence. And he's wonderful, Jericho Brown, Rebecca Bingham. It's been a wonderful experience working with this book. But a lot of this book also started because I have only one aunt left. My mom died on June 24th, actually, in 2005. And my sister died 6 weeks later on August the 10th. And my mom and her middle sister, her name is Ann, we call her Anto, are like Irish twins. And whatever my mother did, Anto did. So we knew when Mommy died that Anto was going to say, oh, Yolan died, and so it's time to die. And she did. I mean, she died in October. I mean, it's pretty much, we knew that. And so my youngest aunt, and I am the baby in my family, we literally went inside of 6 months from being the babies in a family to being elders. And as I put this book together, I do love Agnes so much. And she's 86 now. And, you know, I mean, time, I mean, we hope we're going to keep her forever, but the time, and I hope I make it, hell, I fly. What I wanted to do was to dedicate this book, because you never know what the next book is. I mean, I hope there is a next book, but at this particular point, I wanted to dedicate it to her. And, of course, I'm a writer, so I could have written a dedication, but in trying to get the poems in here, we ended up with 220 poems in the 100 best. And we didn't actually pimp anybody. We you know, it's like one, but we made suites, and we made duets, and we made quartets. And so it actually runs from 1 to 100, but in that 1 to 100, we have 220 poems. The 221st poem is the poem I'd like to share right now, and it's called The Aunt. And it was written by Mary Evans, and it's so beautiful because Mary's mother died when she was young. And dealing with the dedication, I thought, this is a poem of hers that I've always loved so much and I always wanted to do something. So it actually is in front of my table. It's not a part of table of contents. It is the dedication. When your mother dies, your aunt comes in to make sure your ribbons are straight, your hair is combed right, and your legs are not ashy. And before you know it, you are living at her house, and every night, instead of your mother, your aunt is handing you dinner and telling you when it's time to go to bed, and pulling the blanket up over your shoulders and saying, "Good night, sunshine," and sometimes have a smile in her voice. That is what an aunt does. This book is dedicated to my aunt, Agnes Marsh. I'm a native Tennessean. I was born there. During the age of segregation, when you couldn't go to the amusement park or the same movie theater, when the white guys would cruise up and down the streets and call out to you, when the black guys were afraid of being lynched, but we went to church each Sunday and we sang a precious song, and we found a way not to survive, anything can survive, but to thrive and believe and hope. I'm a native Tennessean. I was born there, but I was only 2 months old when my mother and father moved my sister and me to Cincinnati during the age of segregation, when Dow drugstores wouldn't serve us, when neighborhoods were redlined. But at least Mommy could get a job teaching, and Daddy could get a job behind a desk. And after all, if you are a college graduate, that's the least you can expect. Though the Pullman porters took us south each summer and watched over us with an unfailing faith and got us from there to here. I'm from Knoxville, Tennessee. I was born there, in the only state in rebellion that didn't have to undergo Reconstruction, in the volunteer state that sent as many for one side as another, in an area where if I just have to have my car break down, I would prefer any holler to any city neighborhood. But there was no work and no way, and the chronic angers that flared would chase us to Ohio. We were not Liza crossing the river, just 4 people, 2 in love and 2 who were loved, who needed to put a rest to the rage. But the rage stayed and someone had to go. I chose me, but I was born there, so the going was coming. I'm a native Tennessean. I take no joy in Davy Crockett nor Jim Bowie. They were wrong to be at the Alamo. They were wrong to fight for the theft. I loved James Agee. I loved Thunder Road, though I, a native Tennessean, was not allowed to play a bit part when the crew came to town to film the movie. Ingrid Bergman and Anthony Quinn came to take a walk in the spring rain, and despite it all, I like Andrew Jackson. At least he knew the big guys were wrong. I'm a native Tennessean. I graduated Fisk University in Nashville. I know that the freedmen paid for that school. Nobody gave them anything. Pennies and nickels and prayer and determination. The freedmen paid for it, and many others. I know the American Missionary Society took the money the Jubilee Singers made to save Fisk and used it for other purposes. I know the American Missionary Society was wrong. I was educated by the singers of those songs. I love those songs. How could I not love Nashville? How could I not love Dinah Shore, who invited the Jubilee Singers to sing at the Grand Ole Opry, then had to hear those rumors? She sang on, sang until she saw the USA in her Chevrolet. I once saw her on a plane. I was going to the cabin. She was in first class. I smiled and said, "Hey." She smiled and said, "Hey," back. When I got Georgia on my mind, I rode the Chattanooga choo-choo to Lookout Mountain. I saw Memphis and was enchanted. From the mighty Mississippi gracefully turning all red to Bill Street beats at midnight. All those blues from so many bloods decided to turn my blues to Memphis gold. W.C. Handy, Bobby Blue Bland, B.B. King, the late, great Johnny Ace, stacks and stacks of music, American music. The Athens of the South held Tennessee music, but Memphis put the tears to the lonely and crossed over. Everybody wants to rock to my rhythm. I am Memphis. I heard the shots that took Martin. I know who killed the king. I'm a native Tennessean. I know what it is to be free. I am singing the country blues. I am whittling a wooden doll. I am underground mining coal. I am running moonshine. I'm a white boy with a banjo, native to West Africa. I'm a black boy with a twang, native to the hills. I am smart, I am cool, I am unafraid, I am free. Yeah, I am a native Tennessean.